Hi guys, sorry this is part 2. Sorry about that on the previous video for mirrors. Good stuff, let's get into it. Okay. My phone started ringing and it was my doctor's office. I had to take the call, so I ended it there. It was a little bit of a long video. This is kind of the continuation that gets into some of the folklore. Okay, now, in many countries, every country had a little bit of this folklore behind it. There are some of you, maybe if you've heard of feng shui. Feng shui is for lack of a better term, Asian Oriental practice of different things in a home. Certain things should be placed certain ways, etc. And one of the things in the feng shui is a mirror should never be placed in front of an entry door. Why is that? Strange, right? There also, the early churches did not allow mirrors into their actual houses of worship. This went on for centuries, really. Some mirrors eventually, they kind of banned them, and eventually they brought them into the houses of worship, but only in certain areas. It's kind of odd. Now, lots of folklore and mysticism behind it. We all know of Nostradamus. Nostradamus used a brass bowl with a liquid, a reflection pool. And this is where the whole aspect of reflecting the past or seeing into the future comes from, through clarity and reflection and mysticism. There's so many pieces of folklore that I really can't get into all of them, but I will touch on some of them with the mysticism. I'll give you an example. Even myself, I generally don't stare in a mirror at myself. I don't. But there are many that would stare into mirrors and want to see different things and ask themselves and speak to themselves in the mirror. I don't do this. There's the folklore of, quote, the Candyman. You say the name 3 times into the mirror. And this stems back from spirits, from old practices and old witchcraft, if you will. And no, I'm not a person that would ever try my luck at it, let alone a Ouija board. Don't forget, I had mentioned that the aspect of the reflection, the metals behind it, was a medium. I said that in the previous video. Now, some of the spiritual things I had mentioned before I got cut off in the last video was there were people that were doing their own sciences during the moonlights with candles, 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candle, etc. They would do this and do rituals that we would consider witchcraft. Some of them did them as science. Some of them actually just experimented. There's this lore of a mirror reflecting the past. And this is the past that you are seeing into. And technically, it's true. The way light travels, your reflection is in the past that you are seeing technically. So there is some scientific aspect of that practice, if you will. Excuse me. In the early days, like I mentioned in the previous video, they would cover the mirrors when someone died. I actually remember someone in the family, they had a vanity, okay, a 3-mirrored vanity. And this was not in a bedroom. This was actually in the house. It was a big house. I can remember when I was young. And they had these made for this 3-sided mirror covers that went over the little mirrors and cover that went down upon the big mirror, and then they would close them in. You should never close mirrors into mirrors. It creates a, quote, paradox in some aspects. And some people thought it created a world. Now, is the mysticism a world beside us that we can't see? Why the blue moonlight? Because moonlight is blue. I've mentioned before about what is hiding in the blue light in today's technology. So there is some aspect of the moonlight and the mirror going on there. Again, this is just kind of stuff that I'm giving you that I've found. And the mirror itself, when you see, like, for instance, my wife had a 3-sided mirror, and I hated that thing. I mean, I hated it. She's like, why do you hate it? So I said, and then I had to tell her of my, not fear, but respect of mirrors. I said, you'll see, I don't stay in a mirror long. I said, women will do their hair and, in front of a mirror and everything like that. Me, I'm brushing my teeth, I cut my hair, done. And I am not looking and staring into my eyes within the mirror. There is folklore behind that as well. This stems back to seeing the individual person, the person seeing inside their soul and in their hearts. So there's many aspects of it. And then now there's more alchemy that comes into play, not just the candles, but we've all heard of the popularity of seances back in the early 1900s and 1800s. And one of the requirements in a seance was to cover any mirrors in the home, because they viewed it as a portal to where the evil spirits could come through, not just the seance itself. So there's superstitions based on use, based on actual things, based on folklore. There's superstitions based on maybe true experiences that people possibly have experienced. Either way, it's something to wonder. Now, I'll give you an aspect. I have a few people within my family and friends, my circle, like most of you, who have gone through addiction of some sort, whether that be drugs, alcohol, gambling, etc. And one of the things I learned that people don't talk out loud about is the mirror. When someone is in recovery, they have a tendency not to stay in front of a mirror at some point. And in an emotional level, they're dealing with their addiction and they're dealing with the perception. Some of them like what they see in the mirror, some of them don't, because it's a reflection of the past in their eyes. It depends on the person. But I had a friend of mine that I was going through addiction when I was working, and he had been cleaned up. I think he was on his second time. And on his second time, we were all there for support. I was a phone call away, etc. Like most people, if you have not experienced it yourself, you've done it, people that have, they've been the call to, quote, talk them off the ledge. And even though I wasn't an addict, it was out of love, or, not experience, but out of support. And so I asked my friend, he was back on the job about 2 days, and we just got to sit down and talk over some coffee at work. I said, how's it working out? He goes, oh, it's really good. It's good. Okay. I think it's, I relapsed. I think I understand now. I said, it's okay. I said, dude, we're not perfect people. I said, can you look in the mirror yet? And his head popped up. He said, what? I said, can you look at yourself in the mirror? He said, no, I can't. He said, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine that, they share their deepest thoughts. And he said, I'm having a hard time looking at myself in the mirror. And I said, I said, a lot of people go through it. I said, very few talk about it. I said, but it's there. I said, it's real. I said, but just so you know, I said, one of the things that when I found out about the mirror thing, I said, I told my friend, I said, don't view yourself through your eyes, view yourself through mine. And I hope that helps you, because I don't see you at your worst. I see you at your best and attempting to be your best. I said, all of us have had a low point, and we have all seen that low point. I just want you to know I don't remember the low point. I can only see what is in front of me, and that's the person, the good person that you're trying to become. Anyway, there are many folklores within the mirror. I mean, please throw them in the comments that you have heard of that I haven't touched. There's many I haven't touched, and I've done this years and years ago. Like I said, my mom knew about my respect or fear of mirrors. I call it respect. And she actually got me a book about it one time. And, I had a couple, when the internet first came along, I looked up mirrors and different things like that. And there really is something internally within us in our reflection. Just as in how Jesus will judge us when we come in our last day, when we come the final day and we're judged. I actually don't think it's Jesus judging us. I mean, I think it's just our heart is opened, and we, with God, He delivers whatever judgment is, but we are literally judging ourselves because we are standing in front of the truth, and we can only declare truth and not a lie. So in the final days of judgment, I mean, God knows. And to me, I think it's just one of those things that we also will know. So I know that's not very biblical, but our heart and soul records everything. I can't remember what I need to pick up at the store when I get there half the time. But when we get out of this world, the cloudiness and the veil of this world, everything is crystal clear. So anyway, like I said, throw some stuff in the comments about your experience with mirrors, your nature with mirrors. I know one of the friends of the channel mentioned that Terry, she paints on mirrors. My father actually did so as well, just so you know. He was a painter, and he painted several mirrors at one point in his life. And anyway, again, this was not my normal video, just something I had, always had this odd respect and fear of mirrors. I don't really call it a fear now. I call it a very good respect, just like the Lord. I fear the Lord, but I respect and love Him more than I fear Him, if that makes sense. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Little food for thought.